anytime somebody tells me you can't do something or whatever, I just get it in me that I have to go do it.
It's
Now I've lost 85 pounds almost. I'm like, building muscle. I'm walking 10,000 plus
mashallah.
steps a day with a 25-pound weighted vest.
Tyler, what is going on, brother? Good to have you on the podcast. Thank you for joining. How are you?
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here. I'm great. How are you?
Doing great. I know I asked you like maybe 10 episodes ago if you'd be down. You said sure, but it's episode 16 today and we finally got you on. It's a solo one-on-one episode.
The podcast is old enough to drive a car now, so that's great.
I like that. I like that. I also like the background. I'm working on my background, but so far I just have a small lamp in the back. But I do love the bookshelf and the army, background kind of stuff. Is that a safe on the bottom right? What is that? Oh, it's a fridge.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
it's
a
a
mini
fridge.
fridge where I keep my the stuff to refuel.
I had to zoom in for a second. I just couldn't tell, but yeah, I see that. So okay,
Protein bars and some energy drinks. Yeah.
you know what? My take on it too is like when you're in your office, you're spending 8 hours a day or whatever. You got to be comfortable, right? You know,
Absolutely.
in my office, I have a soccer rebounder. I got some weights, some dumbbells. Just got to be comfortable. You got to be, make it seem like make it feel like a place where you can really want to spend some time and be the best version of yourself. So.
Exactly. Yep.
Awesome. Well, Tyler, you have a background, obviously being in the military. You're a top performing enterprise sales rep. I want to dive into those two things. I know we've been working together here at Clary for a number of months, and you've taught me many things. I really love the conversations we have about faith, about mindset, about discipline. And so, I'm hoping that we can just have a conversation about those things and really just help the audience kind of listen and hear. Hopefully they can get some benefit out of it. So maybe you can start off giving us like a background of yourself, how you got to where you are today, and then we can dive in from there. How does that sound?
Absolutely. Yeah, it sounds great. So I graduated high school 2005, July 2000 or June 2005. I left for the Army 2 weeks later at 17 still. I left, went to Fort Knox, Kentucky for my training as a cavalry scout. Um, and I learned a lot in the Army. I mean, honestly, I did wrestling beforehand in high school to get prepared physically and somewhat, degree mentally as well. But the Army helped me grow, I think, from my perspective, into a man. They teach us a lot of different things. One of the things is an acronym called leadership, LDRSHIP, which stands for loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And those are all kind of like the main, values that the Army inculcates in its soldiers. So there was a lot of different experiences. I could tell you one that I still tap into being in sales these days is the nighttime live fire exercise, right? So in training, we're getting ready to, learn how to maneuver under combat conditions. Basically, they set up and have some drill sergeants in kind of a crow's nest, a gunner nest, shoot, 50 cal machine gun, 240 Bravo, 7.62 millimeter machine gun, 249 saw, 5.56 machine gun, basically just a bunch of different ammo they'll shoot over the heads, like basically like overhead, right? And the whole purpose of this exercise is that you, as a soldier, you're in your full combat gear. You get down around like next to this berm, and you have to jump up towards the bullets that are coming over your head, onto the berm, and then crawl across 100 yards of sand, right? It's like a big sand pit. There's like barbed wire and there's like fake explosions and stuff going off, right? C4 charges getting set off to basically emulate the idea of combat, right? And so I remember being scared. I remember thinking to myself, like, oh my God, this is crazy. You can see it's at nighttime, the exercise, and you can see because they use a thing called tracer rounds, you can see the actual bullets piercing the air, right? Because you see that like, every few rounds, you'll see like a red tracer round go. And so you see this, you hear it, obviously, do, 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 And I remember thinking to myself, like, damn, this is so scary. But like, I just kind of felt my stomach twist with fear, felt that fear grip me, but then just grab it and like use it to just take action, just jump the berm and start crawling, right? Just one step at a time, one elbow at a time, just make it happen. And of course it was nerve-wracking. I mean, there are people that die in those training exercises. It's high
People actually
stakes.
die in them too, actually.
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes a stray bullet will go, wrongly, or sometimes a guy will get up and then stand up, and they're firing overhead, but they're firing at such a low amount overhead that like if you get up and jump, like you can get hit. So yeah, it's serious stuff. Um, but I mean, the way that this has parlayed into my sales life is basically no matter how difficult things get, no matter how like stressed out I get, right? It's a tough situation. I just kind of lean into that and like feel that in I feel the fear, feel the like, the moments that get tough, but then just push through it because, there's no other way, number one. Number two, like it's kind of that idea of grit, right? Like being able to just reach in deep and find that, like in wrestling we called it heart, right? Not giving up, like when things get hard, push through because you can actually make it through a lot more than what you think you can, especially if you just take it one step at a time. So that's kind of been something that in my entire life has been a theme, going from the army, then into sales. And now I'm 20 years after the army, believe it or not. It's been so 2007 is when I got out. So almost 20 years. And it's just continued to serve me really well. Like in my sales life, I've had a lot of different leaders share different perspectives and things like that. But that's one of those lessons I'll never forget.
That seems to me like one of the most important lessons because the mindset, the mental game comes before the physical game, right? Even like, if you're in like a group workout and the instructor will often say things like, hey, first it starts in your mind, believing that you could go to the end without stopping. And you tell your body, it's like, hey, you can do this, you can do this. And a lot of times it's really just a mental game. A lot of people just tell themselves, I can't, it's too hard, I'm not gonna get there. But in your situation, you were living in that like physical danger, right? Obviously, like if you're in the army or physical combat, like that's survival. Whereas selling sales, the worst thing you can you get quit, you quit or you get fired. But in a life and death
Exactly.
scenario, in a survival mode, that's real, true grit. That's actual harder because there's more things at stake, right? Than sales.
I've actually said many times that like after the army, everything's been quote unquote downhill for me from there because nobody can do anything to you in the like civilian world that's
Not
going to
really.
actually be a real threat to your life, like for the most part. So
Huh.
yeah, exactly.
One thing you were saying too about those drills and the practices, like reminds me of, if you want to show up on those sales calls at those high stakes enterprise conversations when it's like, hey, this is a $500,000 deal. We could lose it if we do the wrong thing. You were telling me that in your, military, in the army, you were training as in practice with real ammo, real bullets, so to say, where someone could actually get hurt. So you're not leaving it, you're not practicing in the moment. So in sales, for
Oh yeah.
example, you're not practicing with that chief revenue officer at the last call when you have to win that deal negotiation. You're practicing when it matters, but it's not with the real thing. So tell us more about that. Like tell me more about what that means for you in terms of how does that translate into you being a sales rep today? How do you train, practice, role play ahead of those actual conversations? Do you still do that too?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's actually, I'll call out my leader, both Drew and Jason Plank here at Clary, incredible sales leaders here that have helped me through many different interesting moments and, playing through scenarios and like role playing and trying like really being hard and digging into like those uncomfortable conversations that you think are coming, is it's a way to help yourself shore up any potential gaps that you have in your story, in your strategy. And it's something that I think is really helpful. It's definitely something that in the military they do all the time. I mean, you look at these different things like that, not to get political, but just that situation with Venezuela, right? Like it was very clearly practiced to the point where the actual execution of it happened so like it's like an orchestration, right? Like this was designed to happen that way. And I think that that's something that it's just it's apparent in everyone who's successful in any endeavor, right? You're going to spend time cycling through things, before you actually get to the game time or the moment, if you will, to the point where it's almost like an unconscious effort. Like you almost fall into what I call kind of the flow state, where like you're just firing, you're responding, you're taking in information, and you're adjusting in real time based on what you've already kind of prepared for. So, things only go a certain direction because you are the one that has kind of designed for that to happen, right? Um,
Preparation.
there's a
Yeah.
yeah, there's a book that I read fairly recently called The Confident Mind, within the last 2 years or so. And he's a West Point psychologist that teaches high performing athletes for the military academy, like how to perform under extreme scenarios, under extreme stress, getting ready for Olympics, things like that. And I think sales just really ties in nicely with that, with the military, with elite athlete kind of mindset. The whole idea is that you manifest your reality, right? You bank those small wins and you build your confidence bank, if you will, so that when it comes to moments like that, you've got this kind of store of, the experience. You've already gone through it, right? So you can like visualize how things are going to go. You can play it out in your head so that when the moment actually hits, you're you're confident and it flows, and it's not just like something that there's friction and there's disconnect and misalignment, because you're prepared, right? You're prepared to meet that moment. So it takes a lot of preemptive planning and strategy, and cycling through things in even your own head. I mean, you can do it with leaders, you could do it with colleagues, but you can also just think things through and like play things through yourself, right? To get ahead of stuff. So
Hey, well put. And I'm not sure if you remember, but you actually gifted me that book, and I actually did read it like maybe a month ago. And it was a
yeah,
great book.
I
And
know, I do remember. That's it's
I know, like, I'll be honest with you, I don't have a military background, so to me, like, when you give someone analogies, like that guy was all about like football and military. My thing, I'm into soccer and like not really military, so a lot of those analogies didn't really click with me. But what did click was the fact that, what does confidence actually mean? I forgot the actual quote, but he talks about the fact that like you have to believe in your mind that you're capable of doing it and have no doubt whatever your domain is, right? For me, I play indoor soccer, competitive men's soccer. When I go, as I'm driving there, I'm listening to like pump up music. I'm envisioning scoring that goal. Yeah, like there's nothing at stake. I'm not
you're
going to make any
playing it
money.
through mentally,
I'm
like
playing
you're
it through.
preparing
I
yourself.
tell
Yeah.
myself, things like, hey, I'm going to win every 50 ball. I don't care who's the, who I'm going on one with, the head to head. The guy can be 6'5" and 200. I don't care. Like, I'm not going to lose a ball. I say I'm going to get to it first, and I'm going to just like put 110% effort. No one's gonna out hustle me. I'm gonna score a hat trick. I'm gonna score 3 goals. And those days when I do, like that mental game, that's the mental side. Of course, if you don't couple it with the practice and the training, if I don't go 15 minutes early, get my warm up right, warm up so I don't pull a muscle, take, about 15, 20 shots on goal before the game starts, then I could suffer in terms of the execution not happening because the physical aspect is not there. But having said that, I've actually done the physical execution before, the practice, but mentally I wasn't there and I didn't execute. So there is value and importance for both of them, right? And same as what you were saying too. You called out Jason Plank. That's my boss as well. Super, super great leader. He always talks about what could happen in this scenario and knows what to do because he's been in so many situations. He's super confident. You feel that, you see that in the emails that he writes. So, man, that's
I was thankful to him. I told him because we were working on something recently where he called me and was like, "Okay, so like think about this and then play it through like this." And we were just like kind of in a friendly way, just bantering back and forth of like, "Well, what if they say this and what if they do that?" And it's just very helpful to steel sharpens steel, right? So or iron sharpens iron, whatever it is.
100% true, man. Well, I'm happy that we're on the same team and now we're sharing the same leader in a unique situation. So I'm happy you're working with JP and getting some value with him as well. I want to pivot a little bit. So tell us about your career in enterprise, sorry, in software sales. How did you get to where you are now? I know you were in some communities for enterprise selling. Can you talk to me more about that? You know, How did you get here? What are some learnings along the way? And what's the importance of being part of the community for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my dad and I were running our own business for a chunk of years, almost a decade. We ran the social media marketing group on LinkedIn, which was actually at the time the largest group on LinkedIn, over 2 million members. We were partnered
Really?
with HubSpot, Marketo, Hootsuite, all the major kind of MarTech players. And LinkedIn got acquired by Microsoft, right? So then Microsoft gutted the architecture on the back end of LinkedIn that fed the group system, which basically made it so we weren't able to monetize going forward after that. So kind of lost our business overnight because of the acquisition and the change there. And that led me to basically going looking for a corporate gig, to get back into sales and do what I've been doing for a long time. And a friend of mine was working at Citrix. He was a DevOps cloud engineer for Citrix. And he told me, dude, this is the best company, like, blah, blah, blah. And this was back in 2018. And so I went I got a referral, went to work at Citrix, had a great, process going through there. I basically came in as like a guy with no prior quote unquote SaaS experience. And then I was on inside sales for 1 quarter before the field saw how good I was. I did like I want to say 70 booked meetings in the quarter. I did like over 3 million in pipeline, and we had like a 2.3 million and closed one, something like that. There was one deal that was a $1.3 million takeout of our top competitor, VMware, that I
Wow.
started on a cold call and got them to, we flipped it in 90 days from VMware to Citrix.
No
And that's
way.
what got me, yeah, that's what got me the notification, the interest from the field. Then I got promoted to the field. It was actually, not to like toot my own horn, but it was the fastest promotion from inside sales to outside sales in Citrix history. They've been around for 30 years. And, it was just like everyone told me. I remember when I joined, actually, I was asking the guys, hey, so how do I get to the field? That's where they're making a lot of money. Like, I want to go do that job. And they were like, you got to go through inside sales for 3, 4 years, and you got to go through these director and that director and blah, blah, blah. And I remember thinking in the moment to myself, like, okay, maybe for you, but not for me. And I wasn't like trying to be rude. It's just like we're all on our own path. And like this is actually a great lesson, in my opinion, in sales that I try to teach to everybody that I work with, which is learn to ignore the noise and control what you can control, right?
Hmm.
So a lot of guys get caught up in the stories that other people will say, especially when you're talking in the sales world. They hear other reps saying, "Oh, you have to do this, or you have to do that, or you can't do this," and then they kind of ingest that mentality and limit their own potential by believing things that are not true, or just some statement from somebody else that's based off of limited experience, right? So I had that experience where I was just I didn't really listen to them. I focused on doing what I could control and what I knew, which is just to perform, and then let the work speak for itself, right? And sure enough, I didn't even have to do anything. The field director reached out to me saying, "Hey, my whole team's talking about you. Everyone's saying how much you've added to their business, like how much pipe you've driven that's not just like BS appointments. This is actual legit pipeline." Like, and so anyways, he interviewed me, went out and took that field job. I covered the state of Connecticut for Citrix for 3 years almost. I went on to do my own $1 million deal that I started, from scratch, and was able to achieve really well there. Break different records and things like that along with the team that I was on. Had a team of like 60 or so different commercial, like high level reps at Citrix that were in the field under our SVP, Larry Sweeney.
So you were sorry,
And
you were part of like 60 to 70 reps in that segment. And you
yeah.
were how many of those reps hit $1 million deals that year along with you?
Well, so the first time it was only a few that year, and then the next year it was a bunch, and the third year everyone was doing,
Really?
excuse me, million plus deals. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people.
Was that your first
And
one,
that
by the way?
actually,
Was that your first $1 million
yeah, my
deals?
first at the time SaaS deal, yeah.
Let's go. Congrats, man.
And because I had some big contracts before, with my father and I's business, but not like that, and not with this style of sales process and all that stuff. Um, but what's interesting is this SVP, and I love him. He's one of the best leaders I've ever met in my life, Larry Sweeney. He's now CRO over at Nerdio. Um, he taught us all a lesson about. I don't know if you've ever heard of Roger Bannister,
Yep, I
but
have. Hmm.
he taught us this lesson around Roger Bannister, where basically the idea was nobody believed, including science at the time, that it was physically possible for the human body to surpass doing a 4 minute mile, or to go lower than a 4 minute mile. And eventually Roger Bannister got the 4 minute mile. And then the next year it was like 30 people. And then the year after that, 100 people. And then like 1,000 plus have done it since. And so the point that he was making is it only takes one to break through and get that deal, make that crush that expectation. Because at the time, the commercial business was seen basically as like SMB, right? They had the enterprise business, and then there was the commercial business, and then there was the digital and SMB and that kind of thing. And commercial was kind of lumped in with like, you guys are do small deals, blah, blah, blah. It takes you like 100 deals to get to your quota, all this stuff. Well, Larry kind of flipped the whole thing on its head by saying, guys, we have what it takes to get to the C level, to do seven-figure deals. We don't have to be limited by the idea that we can only get to our number by doing like 100 small deals. If you do some big deals, or like have at least one anchor big deal per quarter, then you can smash out your year. And so that was basically under Larry's leadership. I watched the commercial org go from like, being known as smaller deals, just high velocity, all that, to being very strategic, basically just lower grade enterprise, right? Like smaller accounts, but still at that level, getting to the C level, selling the value, and doing big deals. And sure enough, everyone on the team ended up kind of being that way. And now I've seen all these guys have gone on, including myself, to be successful in enterprise at multiple different companies, doing huge deals at Palo Alto, at whatever, all the big names, right? So Google, Microsoft, et cetera, Amazon, AWS, all the different places. So it's been interesting, and it's been a fun journey. And I love the idea of like when and this is something that's a theme throughout my entire life. Anytime somebody tells me you can't do something or whatever, I just get it in me that I have to go do it
It's a
now, right? I
challenge.
have
It's
to
like,
prove them
oh,
wrong.
challenge accepted. You say I can't do it. Well, I didn't really care about it before, but now that you said I can't do it, I'm gonna prove you wrong. That's a powerful
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Okay, so you're ahead of me in the enterprise space. You've been an account executive for longer. I've been in it for maybe about like 5 to 6 years. I'm, hoping to learn from you and kind of follow that trajectory. I don't have my first $1 million deal. I might have had I've had a deal that was like 350K on a 3-year deal. So like TCV was like 1.2, but never like an ARR, 1-year contract worth $1 million, which is amazing. Hopefully I'll get there. I know I will. I'm confident I will based on this conversation. But can you help me understand
Totally.
what makes a $1 million deal? How can someone transition from it? Like to just to kind of go deeper on that, can you walk us through what are the requirements for the ideal company? Because not every company, not every sale, not every product can sell that way. When you look at a company, for example, if you were looking today a new company to work out and you wanted to sell a $1 million deal, how would you vet out a company to know if it's possible to do so? Can you walk us through your mentality of approaching how to find the right place where you can sell it, and then how to put yourself in that position where you successfully can sell that $1 million deal?
Yeah, I mean, so it starts with the fundamental understanding of the customer, and it starts with really approaching. I know it's kind of a cliche in the enterprise space, but really approaching it more from like a value perspective and value sell. Um, Honestly, I I stopped kind of. I learned to detach from outcomes, number one, because you have to really focus on process in order to drive outcomes, right? So
Mm.
learning how to focus on the process and just really nailing the process constantly, you'll get outcomes naturally, right? So it's almost like when I was younger in my career, I really focused so much on outcomes.
Mm,
And this translates actually really well to fitness, to enterprise selling. It translates across the board. But if you can get what's called analysis paralysis, basically, right? Like, you think about the outcome that you want to achieve. So like you just said, actually the framing of the question puts it perfect, because you're like, how do I get that seven figure deal? Well, if you start by thinking about seven figure, or you start by thinking about the number or whatever, then you're thinking about the outcome, and you're thinking about, you know what I mean? You're kind of putting emphasis on what you want to get to. Whereas what gets you there is the 100,000 steps before then, legal, commercials, I mean, all these different things, med pick, et cetera. But at the very core of the whole thing is, how are you helping solve a big problem for them, right? And then you can
mm,
start to really put those pieces into place and hit each milestone, if you will. Now, there's different methodologies to get there: maps, medpic, challenger, different methodologies in terms of understanding frameworks for selling. But at the end of the day, the whole point is like, what problem are you solving, and who is the owner of that problem that can help drive outcomes. So um, if alignment on outcomes is the eventual goal, in order to get there, you have to align all those different little, dominoes to get that outcome that you want. And so learning how to stop being like maniacally focused on how am I going to achieve X goal or Y goal. So I'll give you an example. I recently got to the heaviest weight I've ever been in my life. I wanted to lose weight, but every time I would try to like make a move on losing weight, I would think about the number that I had to lose, and it just became really overwhelming. Well, talking to my doctor one day, I just decided to make the change, start on the GLP-1, and start right by just eating better, changing my diet, cutting out sugar, cutting out carbs, doing the things that I knew are process wise going to lead me to the outcome that I wanted to achieve. And now it's like 6 months since I've been doing this kind of new routine, I'll call it, where I'm like completely flipped from having a terrible diet and doing almost basically no exercise. I think I was getting around 1,500 steps a day on average before. Now I've lost 85 pounds almost. I'm like, building muscle. I'm walking 10,000 plus
inshallah.
steps a day with a 25-pound weighted vest. But
Nice.
it was like I had to start by like, just changing my diet. I had to start by taking the GLP to get myself that kickstart I needed to actually change my habits and routine, right? And then I had to start just by walking down the street, which was a little bit honestly of a challenge at first because my lower back hurt. I had a lot of extra weight I was carrying around. Um, but little by little, those changes compounded, and eventually now I'm like, I've reversed. I had hit type 2 diabetes. Like I had reversed that completely. My liver enzymes were higher for fatty liver, reversed those back to green, completely normal. Like,
That's amazing, man. That's some great progress. So how many months did it take
thank
you
you.
to lose that 60 pounds that you said?
I'm 80 something, and
80.
I'm around 5 or 6 now, I believe. I
That's a
stopped counting, honestly.
that's
Like,
amazing.
it's funny because I get people who ask me like how many weeks or whatever, or how many months has it been, and I'm like, honestly, I don't even count anymore because this is
Yeah.
just my new life now, right? As far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned. But obviously, it's important to have metrics and understand
For
where you
sure.
are
For
versus
sure.
where you were and all that stuff. So yeah,
But
but
not to obsess over. The thing is, like, what you're talking about is if every day you're focused on, like, hey, get 10,000 steps, cut out the sugar, the daily actions will get you there. And if you continue on that path, naturally, you'll continue to lose whatever you want. You're going to keep going in the right direction. Similar for those enterprise
exactly.
deals. If you're like seven figure, seven figure, seven figure, like all of a sudden you're going to be obsessed and
Then
dreaming
you
about it.
make no progress anywhere. Yeah, exactly. So
Whereas
you
if you,
have to just it's thinking to yourself like, okay, what can I do today to make an impact to drive this deal forward? Like, is there some compelling event? Is there like a critical meeting or something the customer has that gets them like pinned to a deadline? Like all those types of things, you're constantly kind of reshifting your priorities, and just doing those daily motions, prospecting, sending out strategic emails, strategic invites to events, all these things, aligning with the customers and making sure that you're driving those ultimate outcomes. But it takes those daily, And I had actually a mentor of mine who was at SAP for 30 years, 20, 25 years, I think. One of their top, strategic AEs. He handled one account at the time, United Technologies. And I remember asking him because I wanted to follow in his footsteps and get into enterprise SaaS. And I said to him, like, what's the hardest thing about enterprise selling that people don't appreciate? And he said, it's great when the glory happens, you get the big deal, all the spotlight's on you, everyone is, excited and celebrating and everything. But really, the hardest part about the job is when you're just, grinding alone, like every single day in those long stretches of time where nobody's giving you any feedback, you're not winning, you're not getting you know what I mean? And you just have to keep believing in yourself and just keep, putting in the effort without the known like reward that you believe will come. And eventually things just click and start happening. And then boom, now you take down this big deal. Everyone celebrates, then you go right back to the grind, honestly, because even though you just did a big deal, it doesn't really matter.
New
There's
month,
always
new
more deals to,
quarter,
to
new
yeah,
fiscal year.
exactly. What do you do? What have you done for me lately in sales? So yeah,
So I want to double
exactly.
tap into one thing here. So you talked about that loneliness period of, you can go months without a stretch of success and feel like, what am I doing? Am I doing this right? Am I gonna get fired? Am I just going the wrong direction? But then it pops, you get that big deal, you see that massive commission check come in, you're like, oh my God, I'm so successful. The ups and downs, right? You're like, oh, now I'm amazing, I'm a baller. Well, hold on, stay humble a little bit, but like appreciate the win, but don't forget, it's a team effort. Um, so, where does your community, your enterprise community, I see you wearing that shirt, enterprise sellers, how does that play into the daily grind, daily motivation? Does that play a role into supporting you, having a peer group to message in times for support? Can you talk to me about that?
Absolutely. um I forget, there was actually one of my old CEOs. He is an amazing human, I love him to death. Jed Ayers at Control Up, he said, your network is your net worth, right? And I think that having mentors, people that you reach out to for advice, people that you w- would go to and try to understand, like what would they do, um, is absolutely critical. And a chunk of years ago, I think it was almost 4 or 5 years ago at this point, I was looking for a community, looking for a way to tap into people beyond just my colleagues that I worked with. And I actually found this enterprise sellers community, the King, crown logo here, which is run by Jamal Reimer. And it's now called, I think, Strategic Sellers Community. But basically, was able to become an early kind of founding member because at the time I had less than 5 years of enterprise sales SaaS experience, and have had been a member of that group for some time. And I read Jamal's book. That's what led me to the group. Is he has a book called Mega Deal Secrets, and he talks about this kind of twin mountain theory of being able to take a helicopter to the top of the mountain, which is effectively getting to that sea level connection, and then ski back down, right, and work with the lower levels and that kind of thing as you kind of run the deal, and then go back to the top when you've got the findings and like how you're going to help impact the business and this kind of thing. And it was just interesting because I'd never come across somebody who kind of laid out his framework in a way that, like, this is kind of the way that I had learned how to run big deals, which is, you know, get to the top, get interest and alignment on like a high level initiative that they have, and then go back down and work with everyone to get the business case together to really, get the numbers that you're going to impact and all these things, and then go back and really, drive it home with executive alignment on both sides and that kind of thing. And it just being a part of that community, it helped me get started with my workout journey in the first place because it was a weakness of mine. I knew it was, and we had what was called an accountability group that formed, where people are like, hey, let's hold each other accountable towards some goals, right? Towards like deals that we're working on this quarter, or like to just life goals, right? Like, who wants to lose some weight, who wants to get in shape, whatever. So um, having access to a community of like-minded individuals is huge. Having a coach and someone that can support you and help you think through strategic deals, help you think through your approach on things is massive. But then also just the accountability of like, hey, keep me honest here. This is the goals that I'm going for, and then like meet once a week, once a quarter, whatever it is, to keep each other, in line, and make sure that you're sharing progress and saying, these are the things that I did that worked. These are the things that I'd like to do or aspire to do better, right? Because we all are always trying to do better. Nobody's ever perfect. We're all human. So, yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. It's definitely seems to be important to have that community. So going back to like, enterprise deals and $1 million and the analogy you gave of Jamal's book, which I have by the way, and I read it, I think it was a great book. Those big deals
Yeah.
happen when you go to the top first, align on the problem, the goal, get their permission to go to the bottom and be like, oh, hey, your boss wants to do XYZ. He gives that permission in an email. All of a sudden, everybody's listening. You do the work and you come back, and he or she already knows the work that was done, and they're kind of just like approving it and seeing the results. Versus traditionally, a lot of sellers will go to the bottom, sell demos, blah 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 blah, blah, get to the finish line, end of the quarter, email to the top, hey, this is the project. Can you approve it for this reason? Like, what are you talking about? I'm not approving this. Like, this is not going to happen. So I know that's the difference because I've had deals where I've won and lost before, and the
It's
ones where
I've been through it.
the
I know
ones
exactly what you're talking about.
where the big ones happen, the execs are involved from day one, and you're not selling alone. You're having CROs in the same room, chief marketing officers, CEOs. But my question to you again becomes: is every product sellable to the enterprise? Is every product going to make you an enterprise seller, a $1 million seller? Or are there certain companies and products you have to align and sell? As a seller, you can't make the product. How do you know which products and companies can make you $1 million seller? How do you identify? What's your criteria and your framework for selecting the right company to ensure that you're setting yourself up at a place where you can accomplish these goals? Because it's not every place. We both know not every companies can support a $1 million seller goal.
So actually, in the sales world, I'm sure you've probably heard of this before, but there's a tool called RepVue, REPVUE. In my opinion, is one of the best spots to go just to get the real skinny on, companies and how sellers are doing and what they're thinking. It's basically the glass door for salespeople. So I don't know, how familiar your audience is, but Glassdoor is a place that is just kind of like a career review site, and it's great. It used to be where I would go to look at reviews in the past. Um, but really it doesn't have a focus on sales, right? The sales perspective is unique, I think, from the rest of the market in terms of jobs and the way the companies run things. And so understanding what, the company's rep view score is, understanding where they're at in terms of um, you know the market and the competition, compensation, all those things, that's going to be where you're going to have your biggest impact, I think, in terms of trying to understand like what's the potential here. I love looking personally at like, the worst reviews and trying to understand like, is this legit or is this just yeah, kind of thinking through like the vibes that I get a lot of times are salty salespeople who just didn't hit their quota and then got fired or whatever, right?
Yeah,
So
for sure. That
you
happens.
can you can kind of read through the lines and see like based on people's feedback whether it's actually legit and there's a real theme there. Pattern recognition is what I'm saying at the end of the day, is like look for the patterns, right? If you see that there's like crazy turnover in the ELT, crazy turnover in the sales org, all these things, and they're offering a great OTE, well, maybe there's a reason. If only 20% of people are hitting quota, and that's something I would be like I'd take a pretty skeptical eye towards, right? But if 60+% are hitting quota and the market is, you know, in the way things have been, then you probably have a much better chance of smashing out your number at the place with 60% attainment versus 20%, right? So stuff like that, I think, is like, and just thinking through like, does this company have the potential to be a category king, right? The number one tool in the space that basically like if a customer in an ideal world could take like five different solutions and consolidate them all into one tool, are you that tool? That's the question. Or are you that platform, I should say. That's the question that I would ask myself, because the tech tools and spend has become so fragmented. Everybody's fighting for budget. You want to be that platform that can be the true king, the category king.
Yeah,
So
you bring up a great point. I mean, I am familiar with RepView. Obviously, if the audience is not, definitely check it out. It's worth it. It's yeah, like you said, sales view for Glassdoor, basically. Taking that one step farther, it's like for me when I look at RepView, I like to go and take that point of view and actually make set up questions for the interviewer. So when you go talk to the sales leader, say like, hey, I read online on a lot of different websites and RevView that like this is the consensus people say one, two, three. Can you kind of share your perspective on that to kind of show the leadership that you've done your research in the interview cycle, but also get their perspective? Maybe they tell you a reality where it's like, yes, this happened and this is what the result, and therefore a lot of people said this, but here's where we are right now. So you kind of call them out and also dive deeper and just qualify more if this is a good deal for yourself. So that's a good reminder, Tyler. I appreciate that as well. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. What is the role in your life of, you know, being a father and showing up the right way for your family when things get tough for you from the sales world? How do you balance, being all in at work without letting it affect your, who you are at home, where you're just not distracted on your phone all the time, checking your email for DocuSign alerts, and did someone reply to you for this exact deal at 8 p.m.? I know it's a big challenge for a lot of people when they get focused on one thing in their life, they lose track of others. How do you make sure you do that? Because I know you're a father too, girl dad, right?
Yep, I have two girls.
Two girls, yeah.
And I would say the best way to do that is to really be intentional about boundaries and about routine. So, one thing I think everyone, and this has parlayed from my military career to my sales career to the fitness journey, which is routine is almost everything, right? It's very important, especially for young kids. So, having a routine where, like, for example, I handle bedtime every single night. I read a story and I pray with my kids before they go to bed every single night. And that, no matter, I mean, literally their entire lives. I think I've missed like maybe one night or something just due to being away for work, or a couple of nights here and there from being away for work. But for the most part, every single night I've been there and I do their bedtime routine. And, once a week at least, my wife and I sync and have like a, spouse level conversation about the highest level goals for the week, month, year, et cetera. And so I forget, I was reading something or watching a clip on Instagram recently, and I saw this. Basically, this guy was saying you need at least 90 minutes of focused one-on-one time with your spouse weekly to stay aligned, right?
Well,
Because if you
oh
think about
wow,
how
yeah.
hard it is, if you think about how hard it is just to stay aligned as an individual, let alone being two people, right? Working and being in tandem to support each other. So, anyways, to me, routine, carving out time, and being specific. And I can tell you, like, Clary's one of the best companies I've ever worked for in the sense that they really prioritize your personal time and taking vacation. And like, we took off the last 2 weeks of December completely. No work, no messages, no emails, no Slacks, just focused on family. And that's the kind of thing that, like, that's part of what drew me to Claire on it, honestly, was when I was being recruited. It was like the level of importance that they put on people first and truly like you as an individual having a proper life. It's huge in that it really allows you to do your best work and to live your best life and to be focused on your family in those moments that matter the most. They're not going to remember, the times when I had to take an email or whatever, like, because I'm so present for their life. I'm here every day. I'm a part of their life. I, help them with homework. I take them to get the mail. We take them on the golf cart to go to school and back and things like that. So
Oh no way, that's awesome.
yeah, so like, if you design your life to where your routine, it allows for you to have those boundaries and to focus when you need to focus, and then to disconnect when you need to disconnect, then I think it ends up solving itself in the sense that, yeah, I forget, there's that old saying, like, find a job you love, you never work a day in your life type of deal. It's kind of the way it is for me. Like, I absolutely love what I do. I have a ton of fun with it. I meet and work with the most interesting and smartest people in the industry. That helps me sharpen myself and become a better person. So it's just, I think it's all cyclical and it feeds into itself. If you can, be that person at work, then you can be that person for your family, then you can be that person for your team in soccer, or for your, unit, or for your bodybuilding crew, whatever, right? Just it all is very similar in how it all kind of ties together. So
Hey, that was a masterclass, feedback. The two things that really I took a lot of things from that, but the number one thing was like the bedtime. I also, try to do that as much as I can, like maybe every other day, but like it does make a big difference too. I got soccer usually a couple nights a week. It's hard to do every night, but I definitely do like 3 to 4 nights a week. And you're right, like that 1 hour time with your wife, intentional, no phones, or with your kids, just consistently putting you down to sleep, really, builds that relationship. And you know what? It shows them that they're the most important, to the fact that I even take it one step further and I actually stopped working in my house because my daughter's still young, 3 years old. It's really hard for her to understand that my father is like in that room. I can hear him talking for 8 hours, but I can't talk to him because he's on calls. Like it killed me. So I personally uh, built an office in my mom's house to get an extra small room. That's where I am right now, and that's where I go to work. So she
Nice.
knows, Bob going to work, even though it's a 15-minute drive. It's not as convenient to me. I'm like, I'm focused when I'm here so that when I'm done, sometimes I leave my laptop at my mom's house and I'm like, I'm not working till the morning. So I force myself to not be able to work. Um, so anyways, bad decision on a snow day if it's like you can't leave and there's ice on the streets. But for the most part, I'll take my laptop home with me. So I do appreciate that. I think it's a really important advice to high performing, men, or women sellers who are focused on their career. But some of them, I know people will say like, I've been so focused on work, I barely walked today. I barely worked out. My physical health is taking a toll. But like my numbers are the most important thing. It's like, no, man, alignment and
No,
everything really matters. And when you take care of yourself on a physical aspect, you lose that weight, you go to the gym, 10K steps a day, you're gonna go show up like, oh, this guy just like seems chill and happy and confident, and he seems like he's doing things right. The buyer can feel that. And then we both know that, right?
absolutely. Yeah, you want to be who you want to become, right? So act like it, think like it, do it, and you'll get there. And that's how it really just, you manifest your reality. That confident mind book, in my opinion, it applies to more than just sales. It applies to more than just athletics. It applies to life.
Yeah, it does.
What you think about, what you believe, what you tell yourself, the stories you tell yourself become reality, and then that feeds into the perception that people have of you. The more you let things fall out of line and not stick to the routine and the focus that you have, then things just get out of alignment and you end up with with a mess. So
I could not agree more, man. I'm very thankful to be working, maybe on the same team as you, but in the same company, and just be in general, being friends and being able to learn from you. Thank you for gifting me that book. I learned a lot there, and always nice to have these conversations. As we look to wrap up today's
absolutely.
conversation, do you have any plug for, I guess, your sales community or anything else that you want to kind of share? Where can people find you if they want to chat with you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Tyler Crosson, and that's really the only place I am these days. And yeah, the Strategic Sellers Community by Jamal Reimer, check it out. It used to be called Enterprise Sellers, but I believe it's now SSC, Strategic Sellers Community.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, just Clary Sales Loft, check it out if you don't use it today. It's the best revenue platform that exists on the market, and we're doing big things, so it's exciting.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tyler. Appreciate your time. For the audience, if you haven't subscribed but you're a listener, please consider subscribing. Definitely helps us. Excited to bring you more of these episodes. Episode 16. Tyler, thank you for joining us today. It was a great chat, and I'll talk to you
Thank you.
soon.
All right, cheers, brother.
Adios. See you, man.